life happens, and I felt so at home there, but then I felt the need that I had to get out and pursue some other options.
Sure.
And
I get it.
I've tried to listen to those feelings more and more in my life, and because when I do, usually good things happen. And so I left, and about 10 days after I left, another massive eruption happened, and large part of my social circle lost everything they had to the lava, and were just like scattered to the four corners of the earth. And
Oof.
yeah, wild, man. We knew it could happen. We knew where we lived, and Pele, the volcano goddess, just saw fit to redistribute the concentrated awesomeness that had collected there to
Dang.
different parts of the planet.
This is the Farm Hop Life podcast, a traveling homestead family. I'm Matt DeRocher. Today, my guest is Exo Agriculture on Twitter, aka Scott Thompson of Little Pine Farm in Pine, Colorado, at 8,400 feet. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. So, interesting Twitter handle. Let's start there because it's Exo Agriculture. I think we can get into that a little bit, but your name is Martian Farmer, and you sent me a message the other day because we were just going like a little bit back and forth before this, and you said, "I want to go to Mars or at least create ag systems for off-world. Always wanted to end up deep desert or high mountain." So let's start there.
All right.
That's a very ambitious goal, man. So tell me about it.
Well, first of all, I have a very realistic outlook on that goal. I'm not planning on going to Mars, but if the opportunity arose for a one-way trip, I've already made my decision. So there's something very interesting to me. I think ever since I saw the Pauly Shore movie Biodome, where they're like locked in the closed loop system
Was
there.
that in the 80s?
90s, I think.
90s? Okay.
Early 90s. Does not hold up very well, but it was funny at the time. This idea of like closed loop systems where you need to absolutely minimize waste because you have no additional inputs available was very, very exciting to me. And, I was always into nature and science, and just the idea of building like a perfect little self-sustaining system. There's that English gardener guy who built this ecosystem in a sealed bottle, and it's been sealed since like the 70s or something. And
Oh, that's
it's
right.
just
Yeah.
thriving. It's just packed with green and has created its own soil and its own climate and everything. And I think in developing these systems as we move off world, it will help people understand that Earth is a closed loop system right now. It doesn't have to stay that way, but people often just think we have like endless space and endless resources, and if they look at sub-Saharan Martian habitat and see, oh, that's so cool. They have to like make their own air. Guess what? We have to do that on Earth too.
Right.
So
It's just on
just
easy
always
mode
been,
right now.
yeah. I very much see off-world colonization and resource acquisition no differently really than like our ancestors putting on animal skins so they can live farther north. We've always used the tools we have to expand our reach.
Sure.
And if we're going to continue this technological civilization, we got to start getting resources from up there and protecting ourselves from, civilization ending impacts at the same time as we develop that technology. So it's sustainability. That's permaculture. We got to stop these rocks hitting us.
There you go.
Yeah.
So So here's a question I didn't prepare you for.
Okay.
Who's your favorite billionaire? Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, or Bill Gates?
I think to put Musk in the company of the other two is to grossly misunderstand him and kind of accept a narrative about him.
What do you
Um,
mean by that?
I think, people have this idea of like lumping all billionaires together in this like evil category, and I truly think Musk is his alignment is chaotic good. Um, I think he truly does have the best interests of the species at the core of his work. And yeah, some people disagree with that and say, oh no, he's just in it for the money like all the others. But I don't know. He seems to be the only person on like the global stage who's presenting an optimistic view of like the future of humanity. He's the only one like on that level who's encouraging us to go farther and reach farther than we've ever gone before, and become multiplanetary. And we're going to learn a
Sure.
lot of really valuable stuff along the way.
Do you think he's kind of like the Steve Jobs of space travel or something like that? Like kind of like pushing the limits, and then everyone else is trying to like catch up to what he's
I,
doing? Because
I mean, it's clear that SpaceX, and SpaceX is much more than just him, of course. Although he is the lead engineer on the Starship program, which kind of builds everything that comes next for our species. Um,
is
no,
he
I
an
think
engineer?
self-taught. I
Okay.
think his degree was in software. I don't know. I'm not a biographer, but
I was just gonna say, like, was like Steve Jobs ever really like an engineer, or was he just like come like the idea guy and
yeah,
somehow
I
like
think
make it work? What about this? Make it work. What about
yeah,
this? Make it
yeah, and
work.
I think with Musk, it's more the managerial brilliance probably, and the ability to bring that kind of core mission to life. That mission being propagation of the species down here and expansion of the species off world. Um, yeah, man, I think it's exciting and important to, have these visionaries who really push the envelope and, regardless of their motive, I'm grateful for the people doing it. I got a lot of whatever, people have their own opinions about all of this, but you know, the fact is Amazon is developing some revolutionary like automation and logistical technologies that have the potential to really have a dramatic impact on our whole species over the next century or so. And
Sure.
so that's great, and he seems to be doing it more for the fun of being rich and powerful and whatever. I don't know. I
Yeah.
try and shop local when I can and, just do what I can with what I have.
Fair enough. So I'm assuming you saw the movie The Martian with Matt Damon.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So what do
Read
you
the
think
book.
about that? Okay, so I heard the book was like had 10 times more math than the movie, and like it was way
Yeah.
more detailed and
It is very
whatnot. So
much I love like hard sci-fi like that, where there's nothing like that is really like technologically out of the question happening. But that said, I think the whole scenario is like a good presentation of a really like half-assed government version of going to Mars. Um, Elon Musk is talking about landing 1 million tons on the surface in order to build a self-sustaining colony.
hmm.
Um, And that is so much bigger from like the starting point than any vision that any official at NASA has had. Not that has had, I'm sure some of them have dreamed of this, but not on this scale in their lifetime, on the government side of things. Whoa, sorry.
That's all right. So what would you say to the people that are like, why are we trying to colonize Mars and grow food on Mars when we have, a million problems here on Earth? Let's dedicate resources to like fixing the problems
favorite
here.
Question.
I'm glad, because I didn't prep you for this question either. So what would you say to those people? Like, why go up when we have to?
I would say the entire
down.
Oh, sorry, you broke up there, but I got it.
Yep.
I would say, the entire purpose of society, of civilization, is it allows for specialization. It allows some people to focus on some things while other people do other things. And I want to grow food. That's how I want to fit into the world. And some people want to retreat into like theoretical mathematics, and I want to grow food for that guy because his work and his thought might pay off 50 years down the road or whatever.
Sure.
But if we waited for all of our problems to be solved before taking the next step, like we would still be using hand axes and living in caves. That's just not how it works. And I think it's a very, very wise investment to take just a little tiny fraction of the entire planet's wealth and resources and start looking at things on a 500-year time scale. Recently, we're becoming much more aware of how frequent major cosmic impacts are on this planet. And our planet is so living and vibrant that it tends to wash away a lot of the evidence pretty quickly. But, there's just no way the species survives here without the technology to, protect us from up there. And, I think we do need a space force. I just don't think they should be looking down at our enemies. It should be looking up and starting to track all of these objects in our solar system. And you look at, there's a lot of breakdowns online of like, for every dollar that NASA has spent, we've gotten like X dollars of value.
I think it was 6. I think I was going to ask you about that because I heard that figure. It was like for every dollar in, you get 6 back.
And you got to think that that's NASA. That's like the most wasteful way of doing space these days. Like, not to badmouth them. I love NASA. Like, I
had to start somewhere, I guess.
I want to see them continue doing science and stuff like that. But as far as launchers go, like, they are just dinosaurs and so incredibly wasteful. But even with all that waste, it was a significant return on investment. And the materials science and the medical science and everything else that's come out of that has been really valuable. And so I think it's all a matter of perspective. And if you can step back and kind of see the bigger picture of the species, that's kind of why I got into like permaculture and regenerative agriculture, is because I started being able to think more on like 100 years time scale or 500 years time scale, and like not only what we're doing today, but how does that impact like, how the next generation is going to live on the planet and things like that.
So let's go into that a little bit more then. So with that mindset, how did you get started homesteading?
Oh man, it's been such a like long, strange trip. Basically, well, my family, it starts there. My mom loved gardening, and she cooked almost every single meal for our entire family that we ever ate. So
you have a big family?
And growing. I am the 4th of 5 kids.
Pretty decent
Grew
family.
up Mormon in the Salt Lake Valley in Utah.
Only
And
5 then. What a disappointment.
yeah, it was very average. But yeah, from my mom, I got that love of like being intensely involved with what I ate, as well as a really passionate love of reading. I consider those to be like the greatest gifts that she gave to me. My dad, raised us on the best music of all time, and took us out into the wilderness, like, at least a couple of times a month, pretty much
Well,
our
don't leave us
entire
hanging. What's the best music of all
childhood.
time?
Well, I mean, up to that point, I think the best music of all time is being made right now. But he raised us on like Rolling Stones and Paul
Okay.
Simon, and everything back to like what am I, like Buddy Holly, and like those early Everly Brothers, like harmony groups and stuff like that, all the way
Okay.
through the Stones and Bob Dylan and a bunch of great 70s stuff. And so that was cool. And we'd be driving, 5, 6 hours into the desert every other weekend or whatever. And it was great. Just that exposure and connection to nature and like different vibrations and stuff would have a huge impact. And then my brothers later in life teaching me how to dance and like let go. Um, but after college, I was like fat and depressed. And I just knew I needed to make a change. I was sitting all day long and eating a bunch of carbs and processed foods and going out to lunch with my coworkers at fast food joints. And uh, I hit like 278 was my heaviest weight. And I'm 6'5", so like I carry that pretty well. I was
Okay.
fit. I was fit fat. I could like walk up a mountain on the weekends or whatever.
Fit fat. I've
But
never heard that.
I got sick a couple of times a year, and I had problems with my knees, and uh, so yeah, the biggest thing was just like changing my diet. I stopped going to the convenience store. I stopped going out to eat, and lost like the first like 70 or so pounds that way.
Just that. Wow.
Yeah, just that, like
That's
still at the
amazing.
office job, and not even really changing that much lifestyle stuff, just the diet. And then, by the time I got into farming, I got down. So I lost a total of like 102 pounds from my heaviest to my lightest, which
Dang,
was
dude. Good for you.
too much. Um, that was when I had gotten to Hawaii, and I shot my first pig, and I gained the 20 pounds I overshot in like 2 weeks. It was great.
That's sweet.
So anyway, I'm sitting there at the desk in this cubicle under the fluorescent lights for 4 years after college. And I was listening to all this music about like being true to yourself and taking to the road and like living your dreams and shit. And it's like, I can't sit here and listen to this and like not do anything. So I started looking for jobs, looking for farm gigs. I knew I wanted to be outside. I knew I wanted to be growing food. I entertained the idea of like building a tiny house and being a traveling herbalist or something.
Sure.
But I'm a farmer, man. The dream was always to be somewhere where I can plant a fruit tree and still be there, like when that fruit tree starts producing and feeding me. And I haven't managed that yet. But this is the place for sure, where I am now. So I found an internship. I applied to 4 or 5, but I had a phone interview for the one I wanted the most. It was a pasture-based livestock operation in Pennsylvania, and like kind of based on like Joel Salatin type models. And I had a phone interview with them, and I felt like it went really great. And I was super grateful that they would consider somebody so far away.
Right.
I was in Salt Lake City at the time, and I was so stoked on it. I quit my job the next morning. I gave
Just
my
off the
notice.
phone call.
Yeah, I gave my notice the next morning, and the day after that, they called me back and offered me the job, uh,
Nice.
which was awesome. It was room and board and like $200 a week. Um, but it was brutal, you know. It was like 10-hour days most of the time. I was the only one on the farm. And that's like 10 working hours spread over 14 or 15 hours, really.
Sure.
Uh, because you got morning stuff and evening stuff and whatever. But that was great. I learned a lot. I learned that I don't want to be anywhere near the East Coast. Uh, People over there have a different speed, man. It's like always so crazy and so driven and hectic, and
Oh, okay.
I just want to slow down. Um, so I went west. I moved out to California, where I had some family and friends up north, like in the Grass Valley area, and I worked for a bunch of people up there. Just kind of doing all sorts of stuff, but a lot of cannabis industry work. Um, which was really great. I learned a lot about horticulture, and um, but you know, I also learned I don't want to do that for a living on any commercial scale because it's hard work to grow worthwhile product. Um,
Sure.
but it was awesome, and I learned a lot. And then I found my way out to Hawaii. I spent a total of like 3 years on a little homestead out there.
That's sweet.
Uh, and it was really cool. Like you had, you know, the whole shebang, a big, huge catchment pond and a solar system, a big solar array. And so it was way off grid, but with all the amenities. And I converted this little donkey shack into a little three-walled house for myself.
There you
And that
go.
was amazing. That's where I learned the most. The guy who owned that place, he was my guru. That's where all my most important farming lessons came from.
Hmm.
It was the first time I like felt at home somewhere since like leaving my childhood home after high school.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it was an amazing place and a very difficult place to grow food. Out on the eastern tip of the Big Island, you know, that earth is so like new geologically speaking that there's no topsoil out there.
Oh, I
And
can see that. Yep. Yep.
and all the water just goes straight through into the ground because it's all super porous volcanic rock.
Right.
So it's pretty tricky. It's hard to get biomass out there. That's a huge issue. And like that's the number one issue, really. It's like, oh, I want to grow food. Where are you getting your mulch? That's number one. Um, so it was, you know, it was hard. A lot of people think, oh, lush jungle, just walk in and grab food. Like, no, that's not even close.
So then is it a lot of chop and drop then just to keep to build up
Tons.
that okay.
Yeah. Like this guy had been managing 20 acres of cane grass, which has a nice, when it matures, has a nice mix of kind of green and lignified material, makes good mulch. And he had built up, you know, 4 or 5 inches of really nice topsoil in about 20 years
Hmm.
across the whole like 20-acre parcel. And we just kind of would
Wow,
have
that's
two
massive.
acres in cultivation at any given time. And well, yeah, small areas of cultivation though, like a couple of strips of trees and then a moving field with like taro and ginger and stuff in it.
But I mean, like, did you say
Yeah,
four to
so that
five
was
inches across 20 acres? Like
yeah,
over 20
yeah,
years? That's still crazy.
yeah. Oh, it's huge. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And he always dreamt of having 500 acres so that he could run a big cattle operation. And we were both of the opinion that he would have built topsoil probably twice as quick with more land and some animal help.
Sure. Definitely. I think I just heard recently Ben Falk had brought in some sheep recently. Like, it's been about a year and he hasn't had sheep before. And that first year he had sheep did more for the soil than the
Hmm.
previous 7 years. So, I
Yeah, I
mean,
believe
it's
that.
it's crazy that people are thinking that we can build soil without animals. like in
No.
any regard. Like you have no idea what you're talking about. Like we've seen the results.
Yeah. Yeah, that first farm I worked in Pennsylvania, you know, those farmers bought a shale hillside like 30 years ago and just have converted it to like amazing lush pasture and silvopasture. Um, really cool just to like see the pictures of the place when they bought it compared to when I was there. Um, and even in the pasture, you can see the line where like last year's livestock or last year's pastured chickens and turkeys were.
Sure.
Because it's night and day, like dark, super lush green versus, you know, more yellow green kind of natural meadow
Struggling to
type
make it.
growth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
really,
gotcha.
really amazing, even on a single season basis. So
So
cool.
then so then from Hawaii, how did you get to where you are now?
All right. So from Hawaii, that was wild, man. I was there for one of the recent lava flows. I was there for a hurricane. It hit shore as a category one, like right where I lived. Uh, our structures we knew could hold on to it, could stand up to it, and we were just outside the forest, so no trees were going to fall on us or anything. So
Mm,
we just rode it out there. It was wild.
I bet.
Um, and then, you know, life happens, and I felt so at home there, but then I felt the need that I had to get out and pursue some other options.
Sure.
And
I get it.
I've tried to listen to those feelings more and more in my life, and because when I do, usually good things happen. And so I left, and about 10 days after I left, another massive eruption happened, and large part of my social circle lost everything they had to the lava and were just like scattered to the four corners of the earth. And
Oof.
yeah, wild, man. We knew it could happen. You know, we knew where we lived, and Pele, the volcano goddess, just saw fit to redistribute the concentrated awesomeness that had collected there to
Dang.
different parts of the planet.
What year
So that
was
was pretty
that?
crazy. That was the 2018
Okay.
lava flow in Pahoa, Hawaii.
Okay.
Um, yeah, wild. And then I reconnected with my girlfriend, and she took a job. She's in finance. She took a job in San Diego. So I'm like, sure, why not? You know, my mom's from there. I grew up visiting there every year, and I found a sweet little nonprofit farm down there where I worked for 3 years. I got to live on the farm. But then during the pandemic, as soon as she was allowed to go full time remote, we're like, that's it. We got to get off the coast, get out of California, get back to the mountains. Um, and we
Have
were
you
really
guys
lucky, I
been like
think.
looking and talking about this beforehand, or were you like green light, go? Like I don't care where, let's
No,
go.
you know, and I was going to mention later about the danger of becoming too attached to plans. And
Sure.
there's this, call it an article of faith, if you will, in the musical cult I belong to. And their primary article of faith is the trick is to surrender to the flow. And I feel like the more I can just kind of, you know, keep working hard, but surrender, just take things as they come and do what I can with what's presented to me. That's when things go best for me. So we had this kind of nebulous cloud of possibilities that we were kicking around for many years. That included like Bonaire, you know, a freaking desert island out in the Atlantic, and you know, out in the desert somewhere along the border. I thought that could be cool. Uh, or the mountains. And for her job, she needed to be within driving distance of an office. So our options were Atlanta or Denver. So here we are. We're 45 minutes outside of Denver, which is awesome. Gives me great access to a lot of materials and a lot of markets. But we're all the way up here at 8,400 feet, and it's quiet and it's clean, and yeah, it's awesome, man. 2 acres, like perfect gentle slope,
Sure.
facing south. Just couldn't
Perfect.
ask for a better little spot.
So with your spot, what motivates you to
Oh, you broke up.
um
Sorry. Oh, what
what
motivates?
what motivates you to grow your own food?
Um, I mentioned the Mormon thing earlier. I grew up Mormon. I'm really grateful for that upbringing, and I learned a lot. They have a lot of emphasis on like food storage and self-reliance and uh, taking care of your family and your community uh, and all of that stuff really stuck. The faith and surrender to things that aren't necessarily under your control. And music, my first like transcendent musical experiences were seeing the Mormon Tabernacle Choir live, like
Mm.
in their purpose built building in Salt Lake City, and just like all of those voices like vibrating to the core of your being with these powerful songs. Is that's I think where I fell in love with like live music and like being there and exposing yourself to the vibration. And um but I was in Mormonism. They send their young people out on the missions all over the world,
Yeah.
and I wasn't quite sure about that. um and I wasn't going to go because it was expected of me by family or society or whatever. So, I used the tools that I had at the time, which were fasting and prayer, and tools that I'm very grateful for and still use in my life today. Um, and I fasted for 3 days and I prayed. I call it meditation now, for this particular session, several hours. And I had a very real, profound experience. And today I call it a psychedelic experience, on the
Hmm.
natch or all natural. Um, but, then with the vocabulary that I had at that point in my life, it was definitely God telling me to go to Africa. And so I went to Africa. I went to Kenya on a Mormon mission, and I was there for 2 years.
Holy
And I
smokes.
spent a good chunk, yeah, from age 19 to 21. Um, and I spent a good chunk of that time like out in the bush.
That's
And I had
crazy, dude.
some of the like wildest experiences of my life. You know, Running over black mamba on my bike, one of the deadliest snakes in the world. I got struck by lightning.
Whoa.
I helped.
How did it feel? Okay, so really quick. I'm an electrician. What's it feel like to get struck by lightning? Because I don't exactly like getting struck by or zapped by 277 volts. 120, I don't really
Um,
like that much, but 277
the
bites a
only
little
thing
more.
I can really compare it to is electric fences.
Okay,
Um, like if you touch an electric fence with a really strong, like 8,000 joule pop on it,
sure.
like it'll kind of make your whole arm dead and like make you
You
really
kind of
sore
want
in
to
the
hit the floor.
shoulder. And yeah.
Okay.
So I would describe it as maybe like double an 8K electric fence and impacting every cell of your body at once instead of the appendage that's touching the fence. It was, I blacked out. I came to lying on the floor. Um, it was
Got eaten by a
it was a
lion.
crummy. No, it was a crummy building, and we had water. When it rained hard, water would come in the back door and out the front door across the concrete floor. And so I was standing barefoot in water, filling up a pot in the sink. And of course, that sink is connected to the metal water tank on the roof.
Mm.
And that got hit, and I came to on my back in the water. And
Oh, so you
yeah,
had like the worst conditions to get struck by lightning because you're standing in
yeah,
water.
it was terrible, terrible pain. I was very sore all over and kind of ringing, and a mild burn on my hand. And um, yeah, it sucked, man. But while I was out there, like I had all these amazing experiences. I met the happiest people that I had ever like come across in my entire life. These people who had nothing and were subsistence farmers, and they had each other and they had their friends, and they were just so happy. They were laughing together and coming together all the time to hang out and just talk and laugh and dance and listen to music. And so cool. I had never experienced that. I had grown up around a lot of miserable people who materially speaking were very well off compared to these people. And so that was a really important like exposure for me of seeing these people living such like basic natural lives, and seeing just the joy that it brought. And don't get me wrong, that kind of hardship, their life expectancy was hardly anything, and they're these tiny people, and they're undernourished, and the tall ones are like 5'2". Uh, and so
But
it's
you were
not
a
like I'm
giant
not trying
then.
to like paint some agricultural utopia or anything, but
Sure.
it was a very important like moment for me. At that time, I had no idea that there was even a possibility of me like living outside and growing food, because my concept of a farmer was my overweight uncle sitting on his tractor for 12 hours a day, on the combine.
Right?
And like that's what I thought of farming. And that certainly is not the way I want to spend my time outside. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so anyway, I went to school, went to college after that, got a communications degree, had some good experiences, but ultimately, I wish I would have gone for soil science or something. Um, and then somewhere along the road, some plant teachers came into my life, uh, cannabis and magic mushrooms primarily. Um, and I ate these mushrooms for the first time after like a year of research and like learning everything I can about it. And I was 26, I think, and I ate these mushrooms. And we don't have to go through the whole like story, but like ultimately, I reached a point that was qualitatively exactly the same thing I had experienced when I was told to go to Africa, by
Hmm.
God. And nobody will ever be able to tell me that those two experiences are like different. It's the same thing. I plugged into the same energy that I did when I was fasting and praying for 3 days. Um, and everybody has their own path, but
I
I'm
was
still
just gonna say
perfectly
it's like
comfortable
two
using.
roads to the same destination.
That's exactly how I see it. Yeah, I'm still perfectly comfortable using the vocabulary I grew up with. There was a time before the mushrooms when that was not true. Um, but then once I was able to talk to God again, like, most of my anxieties and especially any like existential crises I was feeling were totally resolved. And future use really helped me, I believe, like get on the path that is truest to me. um And it's been hard and scary, you know, quitting my corporate gig after college was like the most terrifying thing I've ever done. Uh, you know,
I bet.
I
Yeah.
saw the path ahead of me at that company, and it was like, man, I could be running this place in 10 years. Just like the talent that I was surrounded by, like some beautiful people, but it's like, why are you in that position? Um, and you know, I would have been locked into some, you know, probably suburban Mormon life with a wife and kids by the time I was whatever. I've had a couple of wives, but we
Yeah,
don't
your
need to
path
get
was
into that
set.
either.
Like you knew exactly what
Yeah,
it was going to look
exactly.
like if you kept
Uh-huh.
at it. Yep. I get
And
it.
to quit all of that for you know, a few $100 a month and an internship when I was already 4+ years out of college, and making decent money, like, you know, decent for an entry level position. Um, yeah, it was scary, but you know, every scary step since then has been that much easier. And yeah, man, just going with the flow.
I got you. So let's look at your property that you have now. So
Yeah.
um I'm gonna pull up your pictures here. Where are we? Here we are. So what methods or practices or techniques do you do on your property, and like what are we looking at here?
Okay, so we are looking southwest here, from like the northeast corner of my annual beds. Um, Basically, what we're going for, especially as far as annuals, is like feeding ourselves and growing ingredients for value-added products. I definitely don't, you know, in my 11 years now of bouncing around small farms, um, I've learned that what I don't want to do is be slinging fresh veg at the farmer's market every weekend. Um,
Like everybody else.
yeah, that way lies madness, man, and that way lies like an 80% failure rate of small farms or whatever it is. You
Yeah.
know, it's the numbers are not good, and it's so hard to compete in, you know, with the big industrial models. It's admirable that that so many people who are competing against that on such an uneven playing field. But anyway, what we're going for here is annuals to feed us, and then, you know, maybe expand to some local restaurant contacts or a very very tight CSA, but mostly be focusing on shippable products from perennial plants. We want to do a lot of orchard plantings. There's a surprising number of fruits, shrubs, and trees that do well in zones 3 and 4. And I'm zone 4A. Uh, so, like most of the planted property, we want as perennials. But
Okay.
anyway, where the disc golf basket is, on that diagonal there, that's where they put in the new leach field. Um,
Okay.
when we bought the place, they put in like a new, you know, government mandated state of the art septic system, and they're like, you can drink the water that comes out the leach field. I'm like, great. Where can I hook up a hose? Oh no, you can't do that. Sorry.
Sorry, I
Um,
dropped my headphones.
it's all good. Um, so anyway, in putting in that leach field, they actually blocked the drainage to the entire property, uh, which was not so good. Let's see. Do I have power to? No. Are you? Can I change the picture?
Yep, that's you.
How are we doing that? Okay.
I think you got to
Why
go to
not
your other
click?
window or
Oh, I'm still
tab
on
and
full screen. Okay, I got it. Here we go. All right. Um, oh, I've been leaving the fallen trees down, and before the grass started coming back, the deer really enjoyed that.
nice.
We're starting all our annuals inside right now. Our last average frost is May 19th. with good chance of like June frosts. So we're
Right.
planning on doing most of our planting like that first week of June. Broad fork is my preferred tool. I definitely want
I've
to
seen
keep the
people use
annual
those. That's
space.
cool.
Yeah, this is the 30-inch model from Treadlight, which I really like. Um, and I've really done an abuse test on this tool, and I broke one in
What?
like really well. It was conditions I should not have been using it in. The soil was way
Mm,
too hard. It was compacted from heavy machinery from the septic.
sure.
Um, and I should have like wetted the whole area for a couple of days before I tried. But I managed to. I'm a big guy, and I did quite a bit with it before I got a crack on one of the welds. And they're a great company. They sent me a replacement right away with paid
Hmm.
shipping to return the cracked one. And I've been using it all spring now, and it's fantastic. Even in difficult, mountain meadow turf like I'm dealing with, I'm going to be fighting native grasses for a few years here.
Ha!
Um, that's the first gift that I've gotten on the land. Why can't I
That's awesome.
see? There was a little like toolbar where I could see all the thumbnails, but now I just kind of have to scroll. So here, again, just using what I have available. I got a free roll of opaque plastic online. Uh,
Nice.
so I'm kind of solarizing half of the beds, and it's not getting hot enough to kill anything, but it is like really jump starting those grasses.
Okay.
So I'm going to give it
Yeah.
like another week and then switch sides on the plastic and get in there and start really attacking the grass while I still have, you know, uh, at least a couple of weeks before planting time. Um, yeah, most of the orchard, I'm working on some cold frame boxes here. This little greenhouse, came
Hey,
with the
neat.
property. Um, and I kind of have to, it didn't have enough panels with it. I'm working on that right now. Got some plastic
Hmm.
for the front side. I'm going to direct sow into here this week. I'm pretty excited about that. Um, but that's what it looked like, a month ago.
I was gonna say last night.
um, so yeah, it's actually my first winter in like 10 years because I've been in California and Hawaii and
Oh, sure. Okay.
but I'm readjusting to the cold much better than I thought. I was a competitive skier as a kid and I like
That's
the I like
sweet.
the cold.
I like the
I
cold.
think
Yeah,
that's
me too.
most of what I have.
All right.
Uh, basically, so they cut off the drainage of like the whole property with that leach field. And so right now I'm working on building kind of a hugel berm. You've heard of hugel culture?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where you get all the logs and branches and stuff underground and build a mound. I'm kind of using something similar. I'm doing like a hugel swale where I only dug down a little bit and I put down like a foot of wood chips, and then I've been building a big long pile of branches, which are weathering nicely and compacting. And soon I'm getting a small chipper shredder so I can top it
Oh,
with another
nice.
load of chips. And then I'll dig the swale out in front of it and cover it all with soil, and that will all divert all of the property drainage over into the orchard, which will be really nice
Have you
instead of
taken
straight through the
a
middle of my
permaculture
annual
designer
beds.
course?
Um, I'm more of an autodidact. I need to just kind of teach myself things.
Sure.
Um, so I would feel comfortable in teaching a permaculture course at this point. Uh, but no, I've never like actually taken a formal
Sure.
class.
I was just curious if like you
Yeah.
had that formal training because that seems to
Very
be.
well steeped in all the principles and stuff for sure. Yeah.
I'm I like dabble in lots of little things, but I don't like any. I don't have 2 grand to go take like intensive in-person one or,
Yeah.
a very thorough online one. So I've just had to like
Well,
pick up
and
little bits and pieces. So I'm like, I'm not getting all the interconnections like much.
right.
I get like little bits at a time, not like, oh, I can see the whole puzzle now. It's I
Yeah,
yeah.
uh going back to a previous topic, there's this amazing little molecule called LSD, and that really, it's the ultimate big picture. In my experience, it puts all of creation before me, and I'm free to zoom in on any part that I wish and see how it fits with all the rest. And for me personally, like there's also an aspect of like I need to be there, and I'm really grateful for all of my variety of experience,
hmm
um, because I'm able to kind of see like, oh, that guy did this one thing, and this guy did something else. I bet if you brought those two ideas together, they would mesh really well. Um, so and all the while I was getting my hands on the epic permaculture guide by Bill Mollison and the other guy, and I was doing a lot of book learning. I've been an intense reader since I was like 3 years old, and I haven't stopped. It's how we install new software up here.
There you go.
um so yeah, I did have a lot of book education, but for me it's like being out in nature and experiencing all of the natural systems that then as a manager and a farmer I can then bring together and stack on top of each other and stuff like that.
Um, so what have you tried that has worked well it's kind of hard when you've only been at your property for a year. Um,
Yeah.
but what's working so far, I guess?
um I got a couple of those beds kind of prepped and composted and under mulch in the fall. Uh and those are looking really good. Like I broad forked it, and then I got the big heavy hoe out and kind of chopped up the chunks and raked in 3+ inches of compost, and then covered all of that with the wood chips. And the soil's looking amazing. My pH is a little high because I'm on decomposed granite, like
Mm,
nothing but decomposed granite. But the best amendment for that is pine mulch, and I have unlimited supply of pine mulch. I'll probably have to turn to some more drastic measures to get the pH down to where I need it this season. Um, I think I'm at like I got to do some more accurate testing, but I think right now I'm at like 7.5 or even a little higher. So
mm,
I want to get that down like 6.5 would be nice.
sure.
So yeah, but what I've seen working well in my 11 years bouncing around small farms and manning market stalls and all that. The biggest thing for me and something we're trying to do here, if there's any farmers looking for a home out there, hit me up because I'm a big believer in the multifamily operation, especially if there's going to be any animals involved. It's so difficult if it's like just your family unit. You can't go anywhere because those animals need you every single day. So we're actually in the process of like converting the garage into another unit,
Hmm.
um, in order to hopefully tempt a business partner out. Definitely don't want an employee or an intern or anything like that. I'm looking for a business partner, somebody who's got something to bring to the table and some experience behind them and things like that. But that will enable us to take off for a week and go catch some concerts, or go down to the beach for a couple of weeks in Mexico and hang with my family down there. And and knowing that the animals are fine and the worms are fine and whatever. So that's really big. The no fresh veggies at the market thing, like I know some people love that, and I'm grateful for them because I do buy from them. But that's not for me. I could definitely see like contracting with a couple of local restaurants or doing a very tight CSA as part of the operation. But fresh veg is such a grind. It's hard.
Right.
Um, so that brings me to like value added products. Why charge $2 for organic cabbage when you can charge $8 a pound for organic sauerkraut, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Shelf stable stuff, shippable stuff. Don't limit yourself to, I want to focus a lot on some local markets, but I also want product that I can hustle online and like ship stuff to people.
Definitely.
Um,
Are you planning on getting any livestock soon?
yeah, we're getting some chickens and turkeys probably
Nice.
by the end of this week. I
What
converted.
breed?
It's a big mix. I actually have a friend who's got a mature laying flock that he's just going to give me.
Okay,
Um,
laying. Okay.
yeah, and so most of the chickens are not yet 2 years old, and I think the turkeys are approximately the same age.
Okay.
So it'll be nice to kind of get started with some birds that are already laying. I'm looking forward to that. I would like to maybe 2 years out start doing a couple of hogs a year, um, and a few dozen pastured poultry chickens a year as well.
Sure.
I have a little space inside the fence that I'm going to kind of dedicate to a pasture space, small pasture space. Um, Mountain meadow is more accurate than
Not meta.
pasture.
Sure.
Yeah, and just run some like Salatin style chicken pens across that for like 1 or 2 cycles a year.
I was gonna
So,
ask what are you gonna do for like predator protection for the
we're
turkeys
pretty
and the
close
chickens?
to the highway, which is nice. But yeah, we got bears, we got foxes, we got lynx, um, bobcat, maybe not lynx, bobcat for sure. Uh, so I'm putting up a 6 foot perimeter fence kind of around the whole phase 1 operation. Um, and then like the chicken's primary area, their primary yard has a roof on it, like a 6 foot fence with a chicken wire across the top of
Okay.
it. And then like most of their kind of roaming time will either be in the orchard space. Granted, we'll just have some of the smaller existing ponderosas in that until we get it planted out with fruit. But I'll also have like some tunnels, some movable tunnels for them to target them on other places and keep them
Okay.
protected.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then go out and close up the chicken coop by hand with a nice beefy lock every night. I actually built the coop into half of a tough shed that was already on the property when we bought it.
Nice. That's
Um,
convenient.
yeah, I did the whole remodel with just kind of lumber scraps that were already here. Um, it's aside from like a clearance price box of screws. I don't think I've actually spent $1 on the whole chicken coop. So
Nice.
that's pretty
Love
cool.
that. So what given, again, your limited time at your current homestead, what what has failed or hasn't worked yet? And if, you're coming up short because like, well, I haven't tried much, what have where have you been that has failed, Hawaii,
Right.
Pennsylvania, any of those?
hmm yeah, I definitely haven't really had time to fail here yet, but
No
I'm
time to
sure there
fail,
will
new
be.
shirt.
I'm sure there will be many instances in the years to come as we figure things out on such a difficult piece of land. But a couple, I guess I already mentioned the single families with livestock thing is just so difficult and so
Hmm.
demoralizing. And it's like, hey, the neighborhood's having this big party tonight. And it's like, oh, yeah, but then I have to come home at this hour and put the chickens away and make sure the pigs are good and whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just such a drag. Um, and I'm a big believer in community, building community, working together.
Yeah.
I think putting a single family unit on, like, especially some of these bigger suburban lots where they get to be like a half acre to 2 acres and stuff is just an incredible waste of space. And a missed opportunity to build, that non-nuclear aspect to the family, um, which I think is just as important as the blood family.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I don't know. I tried this tried a restaurant scrap program once in California to kind of cut down on the feed bill for the pastured poultry and stuff, and it ended up having so much garbage in it, and like we lost several chickens like choking on bits of trash that we couldn't find,
Oh, geez.
that we didn't catch, a toothpick or a bit of skewer or a half and half cup or whatever. Um, so that didn't really work. You really have to have the kitchen staff fully on board with something like that for it to work.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, man. I don't know. You know, I, the struggles that I've encountered, so many of them haven't really been mine because it wasn't my place. I was just kind of a hired gun, so I was able to learn without without all the consequences,
I
which
mean,
was
that's
nice.
fair, but I guess it could lead us to, so with all your experiences at other places, what's been the biggest challenge in farming or homesteading that you faced? Like, even though you didn't have to suffer
Right, right.
personally.
Um, for me, just like the most personally challenging thing was using my time and my body to build something that I didn't have a stake in.
Mm,
Even a partial ownership, and that's why I said earlier I don't want an employee. I want a partner. I only want to work with people who have a stake in what we're building. Um,
that makes sense.
y- yeah, and so it was really difficult. All I wanted was to plant a tree and be there to eat from it, like 10 years later, and uh, just the way property is right now in our world, it just makes it so difficult for so many young farmers to, there's so much knowledge and so much passion and so many people like ready to go, and they just don't have anywhere to do it.
Right.
Um, and if you do find somewhere, it most likely belongs to somebody else. And oh, the market's really great, so we're actually going to sell this now that you've put 2 or 3 years into it. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
awesome. All right, I guess I'll start over again. Um, so I've gotten very good at starting over. That was the biggest challenge, though. Like, I have some back issues and stuff, and like just pushing so hard to go 40 hours a week for somebody else. Even when I was working on a nonprofit that I really believed in, I still wasn't free to enact my own ideas. And everything still had to be decided by committee. And like, my brain doesn't work like that, man.
Mm-mm.
It's like, well, the committee people are talking. I want to be outside doing stuff. And
Right. I want to talk to one person. Yay or nay? Let's go.
yeah, um, so I guess that's pretty much it. In Hawaii, it was biomass, just like getting enough mulch, was such a constant challenge. Even with how fast things grow, it's like, man, it all just gets washed away so quickly that it's really tough. I
Right.
guess that's all I
So
can.
I'm assuming that eating the fruits of your labor would be the best part about homesteading in
Oh
your
yeah.
okay. That apple or that whatever you're growing, to take that first bite, like I grew this 5 years ago.
Yeah. I can't wait for that moment, man. That'll be great.
Just buy one that's already got like producing fruit and then throw it in the ground.
Yeah,
Fast
no,
track that.
we're
Graft it,
definitely
something.
we're definitely on a shoestring budget.
I get
But
you. Yeah.
we're gonna try to have a few $1,000 for orchard planting next year, and try and get a bunch of like 3 and 4 year old trees and whatever we can afford.
Right.
Eventually, I'd like to have a sizable nursery operation where
That
I'm
would
the
be
one
crazy.
selling grafted fruit trees and stuff. Because they can go for a lot of money.
I
Like,
bet.
it's not unusual to see a grafted apple specific for these zones going for over $100. Um,
Wow.
like 65 is like a base price. Um, yeah, it's pretty crazy. So I'd really like to get into that part. You know, the growing your own food thing is just it's the most liberating thing I've ever experienced. Um, Back when I found my plant teachers and did a lot of extended solo thinking, and thinking about how I can impact the world and what I want to do with my life. It seemed to always come back to food. And, we are what we eat, and whoever controls our food is our master. And uh, my political evolution along the same time period is like, oh, it's so obvious why they want more and more centralized food systems, because then they have power over it, despite the
Hmm.
fact that those systems are much less resilient, and we're much more at risk to one little wrench in the gears can make life very, very difficult for a lot of people, which I think is just around the corner right now. um and so for me it's always been like an issue of freedom and security, and um just rational self-interest. Like, looking at it as selfishly as I can, I want to be in a fulfilled, healthy, like educated community. And so it would be very selfish of me to, have free education programs that help people grow their own food and welcome homeschooling groups onto the property. And um, I do all of that out of, self-interest, because that's the kind of community I want to live in. And I want, if my community can't feed itself, at least, for the most part, that's a giant problem for me. And
Definitely. Yeah.
so that's why I've kind of turned that way. I think there's going to be the biggest boom in gardening the next 2 years that we've seen since like World War II, and like
I
freedom
agree.
gardens and all that. So I'm also trying to position myself to be in a position of like, uh, with in Northern California, I learned a lot about the gold rush and then the green rush, the cannabis industry. Um, the ones who were most consistently getting rich were not the miners or the farmers, but the guys selling the shovels and the nutrients and
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
So I want to really focus heavily on nursery operations, an extensive like worm casting, commercial worm casting operation, um, and try to make the farm a community hub where people can come and take in a workshop for free. And while they're here, yeah, there'll be some goodies for them to buy if they want to, but
Right.
keeping the knowledge free, the content free, uh, is a big part of who I am. Can't stop the signal. Information wants to be free, man.
Absolutely.
So I'll never charge for a class, but I'll charge for materials or products associated with that class. so they can then go home and use that knowledge themselves or whatever.
Yeah, I'm trying to do like a value for value type of setup here. Like money shouldn't stop somebody from learning something, in my view.
Definitely.
But hey, if you found something of value that I put out, I will gladly, take whatever you thought. Like if it was worth $1 to you, I'll take $1. If it was worth, I don't know, $1,000,000 to you, I'd take that too. There's a lot I could do with
Yep.
that.
Yep.
But either way, I'm still gonna put it out for free, whether I get $1 million or nothing. I'm gonna keep going. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm all about that. If we're teaching a fermentation class, you list it for $35 and you get to take home a jar and some veggies and whatever, or just come for free with no money and learn the processes and hang out with people in your community and you just don't go home with one or whatever.
right. So sorry, there's a beard hair in my mouth. Gross.
Usually dog over here.
Oh, much better. So switching gears just a little bit here, and it might go. I think it's going to go back to the topic that we opened with. What does arable land mean?
Yeah, man. So this lights my fire big time. And it's a big portion of the reason like I'm so into growing off planet. Um, when people do these like population projections and like, oh, we only have enough farmland for X billion people or whatever, it's like well, yeah, but that's only the land that you're like working with combines and is like ready to go right now, but if we expand, we're such clever little monkeys, man. And we can learn so much from this incredible complex world around us, and we can stack these natural systems on top of each other on a piece of land that would never yield to a plow. And 10 years later, you can be feeding a whole neighborhood from that little plot.
It's a
If you
natural engineering
manage
problem, not a,
exactly.
Hey, we need 5 Earths for the 1 Earth of population type of blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
Like, dude, you need to think way bigger. Yeah.
It's a resource management thing and a creativity thing and an innovation thing. And I think there's hard times globally ahead. And the good part of that is that, chaos is a ladder, man. That's like
What does that
that's
mean?
from Game of Thrones. It's
Okay,
like my favorite line of
never
all
seen
time.
it.
Chaos is a ladder. It's like when we're in the churn and things are hard and difficult, necessity is the mother of all invention. That's when we're going to get creative and start doing things differently. And unfortunately, most people won't be able to really recognize what needs to be done until they're already experiencing like the failure of what has been. So it's like, yeah, there's so much arable land, but if everybody on the planet grew an average of 10 or 15% of their own diet, it's like,
That's a
what
big
does
deal.
that translate to as far as like industrial agriculture acreage, That's a 15% reduction in global food needs from patio gardens, basically. You can grow 10% of your diet on the patio, no problem. And so we need to really expand our kind of grasp of like where our food is coming from and how we can make it. And so many problems in our society can be fixed if people were just like putting in 5 hours a week on a little porch garden or a little container garden or something.
Can you imagine what that would do to mental health in addition to?
Yeah, just connecting yourself back to natural systems, no matter what the scale is. 5 years from now, I would like to be at 80% or more of our total diets.
Dang,
Coming
that's a big
from
ask.
either the property itself or hunting and fishing.
Yeah.
So, we really need to just kind of, everybody should grow something, even if it's just some cilantro and microgreens, under a light in their kitchen. And, we're tool users, man. We got these great opposable thumbs, and we had this brilliant ancestor who stuck a stick into a termite mound. And, dude, we've just been figuring things out like crazy ever since then.
Right.
And, whether it's realizing like, oh, I can put this bear skin on and we can live 100 miles farther north where there's more animals. Or it's like, hey, we have this reusable booster now and we can get stuff to space much, much cheaper. And guess what? The next generation is going to run on renewable fuels.
Right.
And it's just another tool, man. Like, to paraphrase Joe Rogan, like, if you have a hammer, you can build a house with it, or you can hit yourself in the crotch with it.
Good.
Whether it's the internet or a molecule that's hiding inside of a plant, like, or a chainsaw, like, there's a lot of powerful tools at our disposal, and we can screw up and we can destroy our lives with a lot of those tools, whether it's television or a chainsaw or a molecule, or we can build something greater.
So that goes into a little bit of the next question. So Earth as a closed loop system and exo-agriculture. What does that mean? What is that? What are those things?
Exo-agriculture is just agriculture off the planet.
Okay, I figured that one out on my own. Yeah, but like, so Earth as a closed loop system, I can assume you're also talking about like the little plant in a bottle type.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And we are in a bottle. We're trapped at the bottom of a gravity well, and there's one person on the entire planet like who had the vision and the drive to like see the problem with that. And we can't get more resources. We can't get more oxygen. We can't get more hydrogen or more carbon or whatever. We're just down here at the bottom of the well. And if we do get more resources, odds are it's not going to be a good day the way that they're delivered.
Right.
And, so it's human nature to go climb that mountain. It's human nature to get on this boat and sail to a place you've never seen a picture of because photography hasn't been invented yet and somebody just told you about it. And you're going to put your whole family on this boat and just go for it. And it's like, that's what people do, man. And, there at some point there was somebody who's like, hey, we should, go north and feed on all the animals out there. And they're like, it's too cold. You're going to freeze to death. And, he puts a bear skin on and goes and makes it happen and establishes a new settlement.
Snowshoes and yeah.
Exactly. So I don't view space tech any differently from that. Bill Mollison said something really great about like using bulldozers and heavy equipment to establish permaculture settlements. And he's like, yeah, we have these amazing tools, like, and we're not going to be able to sustain the use of tools like this forever at the rate we're doing it. So, like, let's use them to build something that will last. And I kind of just, that really vibed well with me. And I view rockets the same way. It's like the next generation of rocket is fully reusable and runs on methane and oxygen, which are both renewable. It's just, It's a better hand axe, and it's going to give us access to more resources and more security, and it's just the nature of life, man. We have the capability to go live somewhere else, and so life is going to do that, whether it's a seed floating across the ocean, or a bug, an insect that gets blown by a hurricane. Like, it's going to land somewhere and it's going to try to survive. So I think it's inevitable for sure, and it's very exciting. And I spend a lot of my time thinking about how we're going to grow food when we do go. Elon Musk often talks about the importance of becoming a multiplanetary species. And I really appreciate that he's updated that in recent addresses to a multiplanetary biome, which is my goal. I don't want to be a multiplanetary species. I want to take as much of the biosphere as possible with us, because biodiversity equals resilience. And the more natural systems we can put together in a thriving way, the more likely that experiment is to work in the long term. And so, like, my picture of space habitats is like, there needs to be something growing everywhere light touches. Whether that's like paneling that we can grow algae inside of, or just like, there's so much innovation being done in vertical farming techniques right now. It's like anywhere we're using energy to cast light, it's like, let's grow something there. Because odds are you aren't using that spot like 24 hours a day,
Sure. Yeah.
And so, like, all the walkways should have, shallow algae tanks coursing beneath them, just like growing fuel and spirulina and stuff like that. And oxygen, of course.
Right. Yeah. So then, what would you tell people that want to get started, whether they want to grow in their backyard, little patio, subdivision, or want to grow on Mars? What would you tell them?
On this planet, we have this amazing biodiversity all around us, and Mother Nature is very forgiving. And a lot of her creations are very resilient. So don't overthink it. Just like, start growing something. Get a bucket and drill a hole in the bottom of it and plant a seed. Put something on your windowsill and grow something. My farm guru out in Hawaii, the greatest lesson I learned from him was the wisdom of work. He was very much like myself in that he wasn't the best planner. He wasn't the best, like, with logistics and all of that. His whole philosophy was just get started. Like, have an idea of the direction you want to go and take your first steps. You can get so hung up on plans, especially if you've just, finished your permaculture design course, and, you have this perfect picture of what you want your place to be. Don't get all hung up on that. Go outside, start close to the house, start working, and the land will help inform the design. Our plans have changed. I've been here since November, and plans and layouts have changed half a dozen times. And it wasn't until the snow started melting and the ground softened up, and I was actually out there, many hours a day working the land, that it really, like, started to come together. And it's like, oh yeah, obviously that's not going to work. We need to do that over here, and et cetera, et cetera. So just get started. Just grow something, man. Get a jar and grow some sprouts. Like, it's you don't even need any light for that.
That's kind of true. Yeah. Just microgreens. It's like,
yeah. It's so easy, and it can totally change your life. I firmly believe that if somebody with the standard American diet and standard American lifestyle would just, like, get a little window box and grow grow some chives, grow some cilantro, grow some microgreens, it would completely change their life and change the world. That's how we do it. Not,
Definitely.
it'd be great if we could end all subsidies to destructive industrial farming practices and yada, yada, yada. But ultimately, it's like, get the individual growing something, and a better world will result. And the more individuals we can get growing more things as quick as possible, like, we need that really badly right now. I'm really nervous with what's going on in the world right now. Fertilizer prices. I'm on all these farmer groups on social media, and there's people who are just not going to plant anything because they can't afford fertilizer this year, or diesel's too expensive, so they can't run those big, huge combines, for 12 hours a day. And that's the only way that system works. So, we got to localize, we got to decentralize. And I really struggle, like, sharing with people. And like, here we're like in a very defined context, and I'm talking about my passion project, and like it's kind of easy. But my whole life I've had trouble, like, sharing. I have this perfect picture inside my head, again, that's not set in stone. It's more nebulous. I've walked around this homestead in a million possible configurations in my head, and it's so difficult to bring that picture and put it into these, like, primate mouth noises in
Right.
order to put it into somebody else's head. It's so incredibly difficult for me. And so I just eventually adopted the strategy of, like, not trying anymore and show versus tell.
Gotcha.
So I want to show people that, you can grow food in places where you think you can't grow food. We can grow food in Antarctica. We can grow food on Mars. Like, we have tools, we have electricity, we have engineering skills. And
Yeah.
Mars is only 0.37 gravity. So those engineering skills are going to go a heck of a lot farther, which is going to be really
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, man. Don't overthink it. Creative resource acquisition is a big part of it. Like, we're on a pretty tight budget here. And we're kind of, like, cashing out all of our assets to give ourselves the best possible start here. And things like Nextdoor, the app, is amazing. I love it so much. I've been able to barter for stuff. I barter my labor for fancy materials and whatever. There's an app called Freebies, and that combs, like, Nextdoor and OfferUp and Facebook Marketplace for free stuff, and you can, like, set your radius on it.
Yeah.
And I've gotten a lot of stuff through there, furniture and tools and
That's cool.
materials, and obviously Craigslist and stuff. I've gotten a lot of great deals on tools. Table saw, circular saw, wheelbarrow, ladders, all the things we need that added up would be thousands of dollars new at the store.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, that's the benefit of being adaptable and creative in a throwaway culture, I guess. There's a lot of materials at our disposal, which is great. So I think that's the biggest, like, getting started stuff. It's been fun, man. Doing this chicken coop with, like, $0 has, like, got me all stoked to.
Yeah, it's like a challenge. Like, can I actually put in 0? Yeah.
And you got to balance that, because you could get lost on those apps and just start amassing stockpiles of materials all over your property, and to get away from you really quick.
Yeah, I get it.
So it's like, oh, I really want that, but realistically, we're not going to need it until year 4 or whatever. So it's like, all right, I
It'll
gotta
be
pass on
cheaper
it for
now,
now.
though.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So,
Sorry, go ahead. I
no,
got
go
nothing.
ahead. If you if you got more, let's hear it.
No, I was gonna just plug a couple of heroes.
Yeah, go
There's
for it.
this guy Joel. No, not Joel. Jerome Osentowski.
Oh,
He's got
right.
this.
Yeah.
He's got this book called The Forest Garden Greenhouse, and this guy lives in Zone 3B in the Central Rockies, and he's growing bananas in a tropical greenhouse. Um, and he's developed this really cool technique. He calls it the climate battery, where he's like he uses a couple of fans to pump warm air during the day down underground through a series of like perforated pipe manifolds going down 4 or 5 feet, and then he reverses the fan flow at night and brings all the warm air back up. He runs this
Huh.
100 foot by 30 foot greenhouse and says he lights a fire in it like 2 weeks a year, and that's it. To keep it at like above 50 degrees. Really, really incredible.
I forgot I looked this guy up before our talk here, and it honestly looks like I'll have a link in the show notes. But this guy looks like he runs like the conservatory, not conservatory.
Yeah, Rocky
Like
Mountain permaculture something. Yeah, he runs
like
an organization.
yeah, but I mean, like, just his space looks like it would be. I'm the only thing I can relate it to is like
Botanic garden.
the minute. Yes, thank you. That's
Yeah,
exactly what I'm
yeah,
thinking of. Yep.
right.
That's what it looks like, and
Yeah, it's
that's
amazing.
wild.
He's got a tropical greenhouse and a Mediterranean greenhouse, and uses
That's
very
pretty
little
cool.
energy to maintain them, which is very impressive. Really cool.
That's pretty cool.
And then
Yeah.
like the godfather of organic gardening, Elliot Coleman. He's got a great winter gardening handbook, the Winter Harvest Handbook.
Hmm.
And he's doing a lot of really cool, completely unheated stuff in Maine, where he's doing like hoop houses, and then inside the hoop house, he's got row covers on everything. So there's like that double layer protection, and just like his plant timing and varietal selection, and everything is so brilliant and really pushes the boundaries of like what's possible.
That's
Like
awesome.
there's so much we can do to hack climate zones, and I think
Right.
so many people just kind of like accept that they can't do anything if there's snow on the ground, or if it's still going to be in the low 30s for the next month or whatever.
Yeah.
um so those are really amazing resources that have really inspired me. And by next spring, we want to be ready to really push the boundaries of our tiny growing season up here. It's crazy. Like 90-day crops are questionable up here. There's definite
Yeah.
risk
You're pushing the
of
limit.
yeah. So we'll see. It'll be fun.
Well, let's wrap it up there.
Mhm.
We can talk a little bit more after the show too. What Tell people where they can find you on Twitter and YouTube. You just started a new channel.
Yeah, I hope to have a little intro video up on the farm's YouTube very soon. We're not really going public until next year. We're kind of considering this like year zero as far as like farm
Sure.
operations go. Um, but I have been documenting things, and I definitely want to have a presence there. So it'll be slow going on the Little Pine Farm YouTube channel uh, for probably the next year. But there'll be updates here and there. I'm a lot more active on Twitter. Maybe stick to just the things I post instead of all my replies. I can, have a little political fun and cultural fun and things like that.
Sure.
But try to never say something to anyone that I wouldn't say to their face. And, harassing government officials and agencies is always a grand time. So,
That is
you
true.
know,
Yeah.
if you like trolling the FDA, you might like my Twitter at exoagriculture.
There you go. They need lots more trolling, I heard.
Yeah.
So awesome. I appreciate you being here and spending your time here. Learned a lot. Had some crazy conversation. So I'll have links for all your stuff in the show notes, and appreciate everyone watching, listening. We appreciate it. We'll let's get this guy some subscribers on YouTube and some new followers on Twitter. So
right on, man. Thank you so much for having me, Matt. This was my first podcast, and you made it very painless. I appreciate that.
I
Have a good one.
appreciate all the crazy talks. Wow, what an interview. Scott is a pretty interesting guy. I love his energy. Just I really want to go visit him sometime. I mean, I feel like we vibed very well. Thank you for watching and listening. Please like, subscribe, and most importantly, share this video. Check out our website, FarmHopLife.com. Sign up for our email list there to be notified when new videos, interviews, and podcasts are available. You can email me anytime, matt@FarmHopLife.com. And I'm always looking for new people to interview. If you'd like to come on to talk about homesteading, farming, food security, homeschooling, just go to farmhoplife.com/guest, fill out the form, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.